Graciano Rubio, welcome to the ranch. Have you been here before?
No, it's my first time.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you threw down. I'll let everybody know you just did 225 Grace. And what was your time?
I think it was 4:06.
Okay, so you beat Rich Froning's time from a few years ago. That's not bad company to be in. That's awesome. Very good job. And this meeting was arranged by Dave Castro. He stopped at your gym and he was impressed, in speaking with you and just loved what you're doing at your affiliate. He sent me your name when we knew we were coming up here, and we connected that way. And just as a little bit of background to get an idea who you are, I snuck over to your Instagram, and holy shit, you are a strong, strong man. The 330 Isabel, I think, so 330 pounds for Isabel, that's 30 snatches, and you did it in under 20 minutes.
Not the first time.
Okay, but your best is under under 20, so you have done it under 20. So I think that's what's really gotten you some notoriety. Mm-hmm. But when I'm looking at this Instagram 440-pound overhead squat, have you beaten that since?
No, that was a PR.
PR, 440 pounds, so 200 kilo overhead squat. Just the other day, or very recently, 225 SOTS press. So how many reps did you do? Like 3 reps? Three. Yeah. Kept it up in the top position of the SOTS press, which is being down in the bottom of an overhead squat, doing presses with the bar behind the head, kept it up and then stood up with it. And you've told me you've done that with 300 pounds.
Correct.
And then 375-pound press.
Yep.
Strict press.
Yep.
Okay. I just want to throw those out there so people know that why I am so amazed by your numbers. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, when did you get started? When did you first remember having an interest in lifting or the strength game?
That goes back as far as I can remember. So I can't think of a time that I wasn't interested in it. I think my goals and why I do it has changed. Mm-hmm. But I was always interested from day one. So probably some of my earliest memories, my brother is 11 years older than I am.
Okay.
So you go back to like some of your first memories, probably like 5-6 years old.
Yep. So he's 16, 17.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember my brother and his group of friends, they were so much older and bigger and stronger than me, that I wanted to be like that. So that goes back as far as I can remember.
Were you around them when they were lifting? Like, were they lifting in the garage or anything where you could just hang out and see it or anything?
No, not really lifting, just
the physique.
Just the physique.
Yeah.
I think, one of his best friends went on to play college football. He was 6'5", 275.
Okay.
Yeah. My brother among his group of friends was the small guy, and he's a big guy.
Yeah.
So, him and all of his friends, which is unusual, to see a group of teenagers that big. So I didn't realize it at the time that was a unique experience. It was just normal to me. Like, oh, that's what you're looking forward to, where you're looking to be at.
Right.
Without realizing, as a kid, like that's not normal.
Right.
Like this group of people is not normal to look up to. You shouldn't look at them and expect you're going to be there.
Yeah. But they were normal to you because it's what.
But in my environment, that's just what it is. So that goes all the way back as far as I can remember. And probably my first real interest was pro wrestling.
Okay.
Back in the day, they used to have the little cable box. They used to have a little black box. You get all the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
I remember my dad bringing one home, and then I would watch all the WrestleMania.
Yep.
So I'd be 6 years old watching all the WrestleManias. Anytime there wasn't pay-per-view boxing on, my dad would let me watch the pay-per-view wrestling.
DDP.
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody, yep.
So
Hulk Hogan even maybe back then.
Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage.
Yeah, Macho Man. Yeah.
Every single one of them. So probably my first memories are these guys, and not just the strength and the size, but the athleticism.
Right.
The showmanship.
Yeah.
When you look at people like that, like strong when you see it.
Yeah.
Like right away.
Yes.
So guys at this size moving that athletically, that was my first impression. It wasn't purely from a weightlifting perspective. It was just from more of an overall athletic perspective. Seeing dudes that are near 300 pounds flying off the ropes. Yeah. That kind of sets your mentality early on.
You want to be like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the way from early on, and then it was kind of a dark period when I was old enough to realize that it was fake.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
scripted.
Right. Right.
It is
right.
you know,
What?
not everything is
Wrestling's
what
not
it
real?
appears. And then, you know, that kind of transitioned to strongman. And so I grew up, you know, I really came of age in like the Mariusz Pudzianowski era,
Yes.
where it
Yes.
wasn't pure strength. It wasn't all about the 1 rep max. It wasn't all about just the top weight. It was about speed. It was about endurance. It was
More athletic. It became much
watching
more athletic.
watching him torch someone
Yeah.
and do this medley in 20 seconds
Yeah.
that a guy 50 pounds heavier takes a minute to do.
Right.
And when you're watching that,
And he looked good doing it.
right.
He looked
When you're watching someone, you know, outperform it, like triple the work, triple the output.
Right.
You know, if it's for reps, he's putting up 15 reps. The next guy's putting up 7. You know, that kind of display of ability. I kind of transitioned from wanting to be a pro wrestler to like I want to be a strongman like that, like one of those guys. So that's kind of what guided my, not my training, because I didn't start training probably till about 13, 14.
Okay.
But you know what you aspire to. You know, first seeing these
That's
big,
what you had in mind.
yeah, big, athletic, strong guys, and then seeing people like Pudzianowski with that level of with athleticism and power, combined with the strength. So that's always been like a central element of my training, is just because it's cool. You know, for no other reason. You know, especially a sport like strongman where you're testing multiple kinds of strength. I always looked at that and wanted to be like that.
Yeah. So if that's where you aspire to be, and that's been the role model you've had for so many years, when you get the chance, like you said, you probably started really training around 13, 14, you love it.
Right.
Like it's not someone just dragging you to the gym and forcing, you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah,
to
so I started really training because I went to high school and I started working out for football.
Okay.
But it was what made the biggest difference is my mom started letting me ride the city bus. So now I could go on my own. Before I'd always have to bug someone to take me to the gym.
So you'd miss whenever you couldn't get.
Yeah.
So it was inconsistent.
So I would go on the weekends. Maybe I could force my dad to go on a weekday.
Right.
But it wasn't like a consistent thing. And
So you're not saying you weren't training at the school for football. You took it on yourself to train for football.
both.
Oh,
You know,
okay. Okay.
I would go, but you know the gym's only open specific times.
Yeah.
So if I couldn't make it at that time, or you know, be open Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Right.
But then Tuesday, Thursday, you know, I'd bug my mom enough, be like, all right. So finally she came, be like, all right, you can ride the bus out there. I'll pick you up after work.
Okay.
So I would ride the bus to go work out, and then just not tell anyone that I was only 14. Then no one questioned it.
Right.
No one was like, oh, you know,
Because this was a commercial gym.
yeah.
Yeah.
No one's stepping in being like, oh, you know, this guy's not 18 or whatever the official rule was.
Right.
I just blend in, mind my business, you know, be respectful, and no one's any wiser to it.
Right.
So that's where I really started training all the time, was that I could ride the bus and it's only up to me to get it done. So that was my daily routine, you know, all summer. Hop on the bus, ride all the way out there. If it was early, I ride the bus back. My mom picks me up from school.
Yeah. And where'd you get your training plan from? Like, were you making it up? Were you taking it from your brother? Or?
At first, I just went off the internet.
Yeah.
So probably around that same time, there was a handful of websites that was putting out all of the strongman, powerlifting, bodybuilding information. And so
Like T Nation, was it?
T Nation, bodybuilding.com,
Yeah.
Elite FTS,
Yeah.
and there was a few other that were kind of hit and miss.
Right.
But those are the main 3.
Yeah.
They put everything out there.
Yeah.
And so you develop a really good BS detector.
Yes.
Because there's some really good articles out there.
Charles Poliquin on T Nation.
Yeah, so T Nation
Yeah.
had Poliquin, had Dan John,
Dan John. Yeah.
who's probably my favorite from like a application to sports
Yes,
perspective.
Absolutely. Especially strongman, because that throwing is so close.
Yeah, so
the
Dan
training.
John, I probably take the most information from Dan John than anyone else. Poliquin stuff was a little out there,
Yeah.
where it's like,
The tempo.
I get the concept,
Yeah.
but that's more for like an advanced Olympic athlete, not where I was at.
Right.
Dan John stuff was like real simple, straightforward, and it was, get a barbell in people's hands and work hard.
Yep.
And that was
Body
like
is
all of
one
his
piece.
stuff. So everything that he put out there was applicable for a beginner. So I took a lot of his stuff and then kind of went off of templates for the most part. And that was
This
really
isn't normal for a 14-year-old, by the way.
no. So what would during this time, my dad would go to sleep at 8 o'clock, and then my mom would probably go to sleep at like 9. So I would hang out and I would wait until they're in bed, and I'd go. We had a computer room, so I'd wait till I knew they were asleep, and I'd go sneak in and be real quiet, turn the computer on, and then I would just read all these articles. So I'd start with what's new, what just came out, and so this is like 2005, 6. This is like the golden era of like those top strength coaches putting stuff out there. And it wasn't monetized back then.
Right.
This is just the top guys putting it out there and sharing, what they learned over decades.
Yep.
And I'd go read all the new stuff, and if I'd finish, I'd go in the archives and be like, oh man, they put this stuff out like 3 years ago. And I just whittle down through the archives. Everything on T Nation, every archived article that they had.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned about training, was quickly filtering out, like, I'd learn, go to the gym and practice it, then quickly filter out, like, oh no, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yep.
This guy's a stud. This guy, his argument is clear. Everything that he does, he explains why they're doing it, and you can see the results of it.
Yep.
So that's how I spent age, probably 13 to 16, was every single night. I'd probably spend at least an hour reading through all these things over and over and over again. And I'd be getting chewed out at school because
Fall asleep.
No, I
You're
wasn't
reading that stuff.
I'd be, I didn't read a single page of The Great Gatsby because I'd be like, I'm not reading.
You got other stuff.
But I'd go home
Yeah.
and I'd wait. I'd be up, 2-3 hours at night till midnight sometimes, just reading all, how to train.
Yeah.
So I'd still be reading hours a day. It just
Studying's
wasn't
not a chore when you like that.
right.
Right.
It just
Yeah.
wasn't. It just wasn't The Great Gatsby. It
Right.
was.
Yeah.
It was articles from Dan John about the one lift a day method.
One lift a day, I was going to say.
And
yeah, great.
reading it,
The overhead
memorizing
squat.
it, understanding exactly why they do it, and that's where I started with that 50-to-1 method.
Okay.
Is that kind of started when I was young, really young, messing around with the 1-rep max charts, and that's where like the central idea came from. And then I started doing that in combination with these other programs, and that's what I've done ever since
Okay.
I was like 14.
What kind of results did you see? Fast results where people know they were like, "Wow, what are you doing?"
Yeah, that was
I assume you did.
probably the big one. I remember I hit my first 315 bench press, and then my first 405. So those are like the first two big marks. They were football players.
And
so
how
it's
old
like
were you?
14 and 16. So that
4
was
or
like
5
the-
at 16s. Yeah, that's. I mean, yeah.
So that was what got me to that point is then I just tightened up those ideas and got them a little cleaner each time. Every training block, let's say, just tighten up the process a little better and add a little bit more of what works, cut out a little bit of the stuff that's probably fluff or redundant, and just tighten that process up so that it's repeatable.
So the most efficient. So we can call it the minimum effective dose, or just the most efficient use of your time.
Correct.
You said before on another podcast, and I like this because it really helps guide the training. Remember Pareto,
Yeah.
the 80-20. So you were looking at that 20% and knowing, okay, this is the 20% that's getting me the 80, and then being really tight with anything else you were doing. Like, okay, do I need this or do I not? Like, can I remove something here and get the same results?
Yeah, in CrossFit, they teach that intensity is the main driver of results. But intensity is hard to measure. It's difficult to put an actual score on what that intensity is. So what I was doing early on was I took an average, you have your 1-rep max chart. Let's say you can do 5 reps at this weight. You have an estimated max of this. So I kind of took an average of those formulas to be able to say, like, if I do 5 reps at this, let's say, that gives me an estimated max of 300. And then I do a set that's an estimated max of 301. That's a harder set.
You won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a harder
beat.
performance than
Yep.
last week.
Yeah.
So that was the idea I had very early on.
So
Is
instead of trying to beat the actual weight that's on the bar, you're setting what we could call a rep record. Your
Right.
predicted max from the reps at this weight beat the predicted max from the reps at that weight.
correct.
Okay.
So you're setting rep records.
Right.
Because adding 5 pounds is a lot of times too much, or adding 1 rep is too much. That's such a big jump.
Absolutely.
If last week 7 reps was like, man, that was everything I had, I can't
It's
go in it.
unrealistic to
I can't
expect
go.
8.
I can't go. There's no way. You're
And there's
psyched out
You
before
can't do 7.25 or 7.5, right? So yeah.
So
You
the
plateau.
other fault was a lot of times when you move from higher reps, let's say sets of 8 to 10, down to the heavier weights, sets of 2 and 3, the results don't always translate. And a lot of times that's because as we add weight, the set's not actually harder, because you're adding weight, but the reps get less, obviously, and it's not actually more difficult. It's hard to say if I do a set of 10 here and I progress and now I'm doing a set of 5, you don't have a good way to know which one's harder.
Right.
So by converting both into like an estimated max, I know that set of 5 was tougher. So in thinking of something like a minimum effective dose, my goal every single week was I walk into the gym, I want to do one thing harder than anything I've done before.
Right.
That's it.
Awesome.
That's my minimum effective dose. I hit a new level of intensity that I haven't hit before. If I can do that, I'm out of here,
And this was basically programmed on a main exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Very similar to something like the Dan John 1 lift a day.
Yeah,
One
gotcha.
lift,
Yep.
I'm going to build up to 1 set. It's the hardest set I've ever done. If I make it, I'm out of here.
Yep.
I'm going to pack my gym bag. I'm going to go home. I got other stuff to do. So that's kind of set as like the minimum. I have to do that if I want to get stronger.
Yeah.
If I want to train beyond that, I can train, but this is optional. This is because I like to be in the gym. At this point, this is where I work on weaknesses.
Okay.
I'm unstable on this part. I need to do some dumbbell work. Maybe I'm not in the kind of shape I want to be in. I need to do conditioning. Everything on top of that is all the little parts of your fitness that strength might be the main goal. So I need to get in the gym. I need to hit a new level of intensity. All the other things come after that. So I'm not going to come in and then do back down sets. I'm not going to beat myself up. I already did something hard enough to get stronger. Hit my minimum effective dose.
Yeah.
All the way up until the point of maximum recoverable volume. I want to fill all that stuff up with the stuff that's going to make me stronger long term.
Right.
So when I look at a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, I don't have a flexibility problem. I don't have a speed problem. I don't have a conditioning problem. I don't have these other attributes that you neglect.
That are holding you back.
Right, because I'm looking in the future being like, this last lift, it was kind of slow. Really, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue progressing without being faster and more explosive. So once the back squat, for example, once I built up to that 1 set that's harder than before, I'm going to add something in that's going to develop my speed. Or I'm going to add something in if I'm getting tired during my workout, not recovering well. I'm going to add something in to boost my work capacity. It might mean I need to drop the weight on the bar and I do some timed sets, higher volume stuff, but all the way up until that point of maximum recoverable volume. So it was really that idea of the 51 method was really from early on, being a teenager just goofing off on the internet, and then thinking, well, wait a second. Like if every week I go in and just do one thing harder, isn't that all you need? And then 17 years later, and training tons and tons of people in that same way, that is all you need. All this other stuff doesn't work as effectively as actually going in the gym and doing something harder. And I've tried to explain that in the sense of, we're here in Aromas, and if you take a little drive, you're going to see all these farms, and you're going to see people who, in the course of a day, put in a higher volume of work
Absolutely.
than everybody's favorite fitness influencer.
Yeah.
Just in a full 12-hour day, they just crush them in terms of the volume of work that they perform. But they don't have a bigger deadlift.
Right.
Because it's not the amount of work that's important. It's the intensity of the work, and it's the way that you add progression over time. What they're missing is that increase in intensity and that progression over time. But in terms of volume of work, they're blowing them out of the water. It's not even close. But they don't have the results in terms of strength.
Right.
And you can take, that's kind of on the extreme end, but you can back that down all the way to just your regular 1 hour workout and say, is doing more gonna benefit me, or is doing something better and harder. Gonna benefit me more? And it's the harder and better that gets the results, not just I'm gonna sacrifice more and I'm gonna train 2 hours and 3 hours until you get to a point that this is all you do all day.
Yes, exactly.
And it works at first, but once you start training, you're there in the gym for 3 hours, and every time you're leaving being like, man, that was all I had.
Yeah.
You just mentally get burnt out.
Yeah. You see that with jogging too. People who run, right?
Yeah.
At first, run a mile a day and that works, but then they got to add it, and soon they have to run 5, and then where are you going to end this?
At some point, you got to run a faster mile.
Yeah.
You got to go faster at some point.
Yeah.
And so that's how I've trained forever.
So why is it called the 50-to-1 method? What's the name represent?
It started off from that Pareto principle.
Okay.
That 80% of your results are 20% of what you do.
Yeah.
But if you take the logical conclusion of that, you get down to about 50-to-1. So let's say you take that 20% of your work. Well, you can apply the 80-20 rule to that 20% as well.
Okay.
And now you have 4-to-64.
Yeah.
And if you take that little 4% sliver and apply it again, you're left with 50-to-1.
Gotcha.
That little tiny bit is all the results.
Yeah.
So if you have your hour-long workout, you're talking 36 seconds. So in the back squat, a set of 10 reps is roughly, a minute. It's probably less than a minute. But if you're really pushing, you're resting at the top and grinding it out.
Yeah.
That means in that set of 10, you're talking like sets, or you're talking reps 5 to 10.
Yeah.
So if you're at 75% of your max or so, you're going for a new 10 rep max back squat. It's those reps, 5 to 10, that's all your results of this strength workout.
Right.
Not the warm-ups, not the skill work before, not the general warm-up.
Yeah.
It's that moment right there where you're staring at the bar and you're like, man, the first couple kind of sucked, the next 2 sucked. You got 6 brutal reps ahead of you. Those are the reps that are all the progress. That's where your results are. Your first, 4, 5, 6, 7 reps, that just got you to the game.
Yeah.
It's the last reps that you get all the results.
Yeah.
So if you view kind of your key indicator right there, like that's what I want to achieve this session, you back your way out of that. And so the entire session is based, not that, I go into the gym, I load the bar, I go for it, I'm done, I'm in 10 minutes. But knowing what you have to do to get stronger sets the rest of the workout up. So if I know, hey, I'm going for a new 10 rep max, I start thinking, what do I need to do to be ready for that 10 rep max? And I'll say, well, I'm gonna do 1 rep. If I wanna, let's just throw a number out there, 300 pounds. I'm gonna do 1 rep, so I'm used to the weight. It's not a shock when I do that first rep and go to the next 10. Okay, so what should I do before the 300? Well, let's say the biggest jump I want to take is 25 pounds. So I'll go 275, and then you go all the way down to your warm-up. Yep. What do I need to be ready for 275? I'll go 245, 215, 185, all the way down. So that's my squat workout from start to finish. Now, I'll say, what do I need to do in terms of skill work before that happens? And the answer might be nothing. If you're confident about your squat technique, feels good, not a particularly difficult lift, nothing. I'm ready to squat. Or, hey, I have this one specific problem that pops up. I'm going to add a little bit of that to correct it before I get into it. And then you go all the way to your general warm-up. What do I need to? How much warming up do I need to do to be ready for the specific warm-up? So now, all the way from that moment right there, those last like 5, 6 reps, to the start of the workout, I know exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
And from the time I start the workout all the way until I get there, I've been building up. It's been in the back of my head, preparing for those 30 seconds.
You know what counts.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going in, I'm not getting on the assault bike and trying to set like a new 1-minute max calorie. In my head, I know this is just to get me warmed up. This is just to get the heart rate going, feel a little better. When I finish that, I do the specific warm up. I already know what I'm gonna do. Hey, I'm gonna hit this weight for 10 reps. So as I'm doing that specific warm up, I'm envisioning what it's gonna be like in that moment. You know, my knee caves in. You know, I'm thinking about that as I warm up. As I do all these sets, that knee is gonna be right where I'm telling it's gonna be right here. So when you get to that moment, let's say that took you 30 minutes to get there. I got 29 minutes of sunk cost into this workout.
Yeah.
You know, that it puts extra pressure on you to force it. You know, I know I have to hit this set of 10.
For it to be a success.
I've spent 29 minutes screwing around, away from my family, away from my wife and kids, not doing other things I could be doing. There's all this kind of stuff that I sacrificed just to get, and I did all this work to get me to this one moment and be able to perform, you know, these 5 reps. Then the pressure builds. And so, you know, you go through that feeling of anxiety and that pressure,
Competition.
and it forces you to get those 5 reps in.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you know what, I'm just gonna go and it's gonna be a hard set.
Yeah.
And you don't really, you go through the whole workout, maybe you go too hard on the warm up, you're kind of tired by the time you get there. It sets the intention of everything you're doing until that point. And then as a coach, and if me using it as myself, every single time I don't get it, right? So let's say I only get 9. It changes training into an iterative process where every single week I have to answer that question: am I getting stronger or not? You know, because if last week I got a score of 300, today it's only 299. Well, I'm not getting stronger. I'm not stronger than I was a week ago. So what's going to change to make that happen? If the answer might just be, you know, I got to suck it up and push myself a little harder. You know, that might work next week, and it might work the week ahead, but at some point that's not going to be the answer anymore. It's just, you know, especially early on for an athlete, athletes learn how to push themselves. They learn how to drive and go for it. So especially like our youth athletes, they'll be like,
do
well,
that for a while. They can push. Yeah.
They'll be like, I just wasn't into it.
Right.
I had more, I just quit on it. They get tougher. They mentally get tougher. And you can see that attitude change of like, no, I'm getting it. Like, I'm getting those 10. I don't care what it takes. You know, but at some point, that's not the answer. And what happens is, since you have to answer that question, you have to be accountable to yourself. You go all the way back, and now you start saying, well, what do I need to do to be ready for the workout, you know, in general? Well, when's the last time you ate? Well, I didn't eat all day. Well, there's your problem, you know. You're not going to come in here and perform at this level, and 6 hours ago you had a Snickers and that's all you've had today. Right. You know, we need to fix the diet, you know. And then you're forced to look at all these other issues that apply to the workout.
Maybe something that happened within those 5. You talked about your knee, so maybe you couldn't stop your knee from caving in, or maybe you couldn't stop your back from rounding. So now you're isolating, okay, this is the weak area that's got to be fixed for me to get that extra rep that'll push me over.
That, and if mentally, you know, that's part of you're not confident in the squat. It'd be like, well, you skip the specific warm up. We're in a time crunch. You didn't have time for it. You kind of took too big of jumps getting there. Why did that happen? Well, I didn't schedule my workout correctly. You know, I got off of work. I only had this much time. Okay, we have a scheduling problem. We have a diet problem back here. How much sleep did you get? You know, what's going on? Well, I was fighting with my wife all day, and then I come in and my head's not in it.
Right.
You go back and you start working on all these different things that's preventing you from that thing that's getting you better, and you slowly fix those.
Right.
So at first, you're never going to convince a 16-year-old athlete they got to eat better. But if you fail to set and ask, hey, you know, what are we going to change next week for this not to happen again? It's like, well, I'm going to push harder. Eventually, okay, I should not stay up till 3 a.m. playing video games. You know, maybe I should drink some water during the day. All of those things.
You connect habits to performance.
Right.
Or success.
If you're performing well, it's really tough to change those habits because it's like, well,
why?
I went up 5 pounds. You're never going to see what it could have been.
Right.
And the reality is, even if you could, you know, you mentally aren't ready for that level of discipline because you don't see the point in it. You know, hey, I'm making progress. I'm getting stronger. Everything's right. But as soon as it breaks down, now you answer that question all the time. Hey, I'm not getting stronger. I got to fix something now. Instead of waiting, 12 weeks when I go for a new 1 rep max and my 1 rep max isn't there. And now I look back across 12 weeks of training and you don't remember how things were. You don't remember how your sleep was 6 weeks ago. You don't remember, all these little things. But I can kind of remember a week. If I don't do well on Monday, I can remember how the weekend went. I'm like, well, it sucked because I was drinking on Saturday. I sat around, did nothing on Sunday. And now when I go to squat, my body's stiff and it kind of hurts and it's not that mobile. So the answer might be, well, don't spend Sunday being laying around. You don't need to get up and work out and do something strenuous, but hold the bottom of a squat for 20 seconds, 3 times throughout the day. And then when you come in on Monday, you feel a lot better. So the whole aspect of that 50-to-1 method and having these key performance indicators of this is what I need to do to get better is that you make your training iterative, and every time you're not getting stronger, you have a way to go back and assess.
Figure out why.
What can I change to make the next training block better? Because I'm looking at it like my training block is a week. I'm not looking at a full 12 weeks of progression from start all the way till I hit a new max. I'm looking at it from week to week, like am I progressing? Am I getting better? And if I'm not, I need immediate change right now before waiting 3 months and saying, okay, I need to change something now.
Absolutely.
It allows you to course correct before those become an issue. And it's not just the strength training, it's with the conditioning too.
Right.
If your previous Fran time, let's just say it was 4 minutes, you understand, okay, I need to do it in 3:59. That's my goal. So how am I gonna break down this workout to do it in 3:59? And you strategize according to that. Here's what my sets are gonna be. Here's how much rest I'm gonna take. You're not just gonna run in there and be like, I'm just gonna go by feel. Well, no, it's gotta be faster than last time. That's one of the
point.
That's why we repeat workouts. To force yourself to work harder, because you have to look at yourself from a year ago and be like, well, this is who I was a year ago. Am I stronger now? Well, of course, it doesn't matter. Of course I'm gonna do 3:59. And it's the same concept. I would much rather do Fran twice than to do one with absolute 100% intensity, as fast as I can. And that's the one that works better.
Right.
There's no way to compare that feeling afterwards of like how beat up and tired you are to doing something twice.
Right.
I can do it twice and I'll take 30 minutes to do it. It's not that hard.
Yeah. But that's not where the results are.
Right.
Yeah.
The results is that one time of like you black out a little bit and you're like, this sucks. This is the worst feeling ever. So it's viewing it from that lens of the intensity is what matters, and then everything else supports that intensity, and they help each other. So it's a little naive to view it as like that's all I have to do, when it's like, well, kind of.
But that's the most important thing you have.
You have to do it, but you're not going to be able to do that without all the other stuff going into it. So if I do all that other stuff and then the moment comes and I just kind of, don't get after it, well, you're leaving all your results on the table.
Right.
But at the same time, without doing all that stuff ahead of time, you won't be ready to go for it. Your body simply won't be ready to push to that level. So it's taking a viewpoint of what really matters and gets me the results, and then doing everything you need to support your ability to get there and do it.
So let's talk about this. So you've used this method, you used it to prepare for football in high school. And we'll talk about this, you've been a professional strongman, used this method to prepare for that.
Yep.
And then transitioned into Olympic lifting and CrossFit. I don't know the timeline of that, but those became focuses of yours.
Yeah.
And you use the same method to do that. And you've talked about having indicators, performance indicators. Give me an example, because I understand throughout your week, right, your days are different. So one day might be a squat, one day might be a bench press, and one day might be a clean if you're doing football. And using the 50-to-1 method, the one thing you need to do is you need to set a record or a personal best in the squat, and then on the next day, on the next training day in the bench, and then a clean. That makes your week successful, and then you kind of round it out with all the other things you need.
Correct.
Let's move that down to strongman. It's the same system. So give me an example of what that looked like, what you were looking at when you were viewing the sport of strongman training and some of the performance indicators you were doing and how you attacked that training.
So when I trained for strongman, I would have a handful of really basic exercises that are really easily scalable, which would mean back squat, deadlift, these things that stay in my training year round no matter what. And that was how I would gauge whether in a general sense I'm getting stronger. If you're just standard back squat, regular old, normal deadlift bar, normal everything, if those are going up, then I'm stronger in a general sense. But that doesn't always translate to sport performance. And so for strongman, I would still go in and I would cut everything down to just the essentials. Back squat, deadlift, overhead press, the few accessory movements like strict pull-ups, a few other ones.
And that's every week you're hitting those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I'd go into the gym and I'd set, some type of rep PR or something that I would consider a minimum effective dose. This is the minimum that I need to do to get stronger long term. Anything above that minimum effective dose, I would add with what I consider sport practice. I don't even consider it training. This is sport practice.
Technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in order to adequately train for those movements, they need to be heavy enough. So if you're doing a log or you're doing stones or you're doing some other thing, it has to be heavy enough that you mimic the technique. It's not the same technique when it's so light. You're just crushing it. It needs to be heavy enough that I'm refining my technique. So I would do those basic barbell exercises, and then all the way up until the point I can't recover anymore, I would add in strongman movements as from a practice sense. And the whole goal there would be
lifting a stone, but not a 50-pound stone, but a 200-pound stone.
right.
Yeah.
So if the competition was like a common competition will be like, let's say you're doing a stone series, and you'll start off and let's say the top stone is 365 or 400 or somewhere in that range. It needs to be heavy enough that it's mimicking the technique of what that 365 stone is going to be like.
Yeah.
And so I might train at 300. I'll train it at 300 because it's heavy enough that the technique isn't going to be significantly different.
Right.
There'll be subtle differences, but you're close enough that this is what it'll be like in competition. And when competition rolls around, I might go a little heavier to prepare.
Gotcha.
But early on, I want to do as many reps as I can because that's sharpening the technique. That's improving that motor pattern. So all of my assistance work would be strongman, and I would view it the same way that anyone would practice for a sport. You're not going to go limit the number of free throws you take. You're not going to limit the number of three-pointers you take. Your goal is to move with the optimal movement pattern and do as many as you can.
Yep.
As many as you have the time for, as much as you have the recovery ability for. So it's very difficult for something like strongman because the movements vary so much that it's every variable that you add makes it harder to answer that question.
Right.
Am I getting stronger? I don't know because this week I did an axle. This week I did
It's different.
This week I did a log.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I have no clue what the
Can't compare
stimulus is.
apples to oranges.
It's hard to add progression over time because I have no way of saying, this weight and this reps for the axle is equivalent to this weight and this reps and this workout for the log. But with the barbell I can. So the barbell,
that's your foundation of
right.
what you know.
I know this week I did this. Next week I went, 2 weeks down the road, I went a little heavier. I know the general strength is there, but now the sport-specific strength is getting better. And so I would treat that the same way you'd practice any move, same way you would practice golf or tennis. You're going to take these movements, these things you need to get better at. You're doing as many as you can. And normally I'd be limited by time. It'd be like, this was a long time to set up. I'm tired. I just don't want to do it anymore. But it's heavy enough that it's close enough to what it's going to feel like in competition, and I do as much as I can. So I would do it where the barbell movements are the general training, and then the strongman movements are the assistance work or the sport specific practice. So for something like a log, because of the reduced range of motion, that's going to be the best tricep accessory you're ever going to get.
Right.
Like there's nothing that'll build the triceps like
So
that.
it's fulfilling two roles.
Right.
Right.
So I'm not going to go do specific tricep accessory.
You've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of the log.
Yeah.
You know, you're overloading the triceps in that movement. So that's how I would view strongman. That's similar to how I adapt it for weightlifting as well.
I can see weightlifting. The system seems ingenious for weightlifting because compared to strongman, limited movements that you need to really get into. So if you're looking at you can do a strict press, push press, and some type of jerk. Work through those. You got your clean, you got your snatch, so an overhead squat, and then obviously a back squat for your very basic squat movement, or front squat if you want, and leave it at that.
So when I started weightlifting, I already had 10 years of training
Right.
built up. So
Right.
when I started weightlifting, there was zero need to get any stronger.
Right.
That was already there.
Especially in the legs.
Yeah, I was
You
just
could squat whatever you could clean or snatch.
yeah, it wasn't even close. Like,
Right.
So I've never been pinned by a clean.
Right.
And I've never even really been like struggled to stand it up.
Yeah.
So when I first started weightlifting, I basically never did any of the full lifts ever. Never did a full snatch. Never did a full clean. And the reason was each component of the lift is so bad that I can't stress myself hard enough on a clean and jerk. Like compared to where my strength is, this weight is so light for what I can actually move well. This is easy.
So you had a ton of technical work to do to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would break it down to tons of components and be like, I need to fix this one piece. I need to fix this one piece. And then as I got a little bit more proficient at them, the amount of like general barbell work would come down because the stress of the lifts are going up.
They're starting
So
to, yeah.
now like the clean and jerk, I can do a clean and jerk workout and be like, man, that beat me up. Like I'm wiped out. Before, it was like, that was nothing. Because the weight I
Just
had
wasn't
to,
enough load.
the weight I had to use was so light in order to maintain technique that this just wasn't very hard.
Sort of what you were talking about with the stones, you didn't have the technical expertise to get to a weight that was sufficient to train the technique, right? We were using the 50-pound stone versus the 300-pound stone
Right.
to mimic, yeah.
So, compared to strong, it'd be the similar as like trying to lift a 50-pound stone and
Right.
being like, well, yeah, I can do this all day. This
Right.
is nothing.
It's not doing anything.
Right. And so I learned mostly from watching the slow motion hook grip videos.
No way.
Every single thing is broken down. So I'd be like, well, where does mine look different? Why am I screwing this up? So at first,
Did you side by side your stuff, or you just kind of watch yours, watch theirs, watch yours?
I went back and
Yeah,
forth.
yeah.
So I would look at, where's the choke point? Like where's the point of the lift that I'm absolutely failing and everything's breaking down? And then I would just do that and be like, okay, until this piece is fixed, everything else is pointless to even try, because this is holding me back so much that there's no point in even doing anything else until this one thing is brought up. So for instance, one of those was, I think when CrossFit first had in the open, I don't know if it was 14 or 15, they had a one rep max clean and jerk for the open.
Yeah.
I got torched. I just absolutely torched. I couldn't squat clean. So it was a power clean, and I didn't have the front rack mobility.
Right.
I just could not do a squat clean.
Yeah.
So I got crushed by people that were half my weight, and that was the first painful enough to be like, all right, I'm going to get that front rack down no matter what it takes, because I'm not getting torched by all these people that I know like that again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all these people, people that I knew from gyms like locally and stuff, I'm like, oh man, they beat me. It wasn't even close. So that was like the first time that I was like, all right, I got to take this.
You got motivation.
I got to get a little better at this,
Yeah.
because just that front rack mobility
Right.
was
Yeah,
like,
it's huge.
I have to improve it.
Yeah.
So that's how I viewed it at first, was that treat the lift like the same way that you would treat learning any skill, and optimize it from there.
So for CrossFit now, if I'm using this method, which philosophically fits right in with CrossFit, right? The intensity is key. But there's so much stuff that I want to be good at. I think one of the key avenues to success is making sure I'm choosing indicators that I'm working on that make a lot of things better.
Yeah.
Right? Big bang for your buck stuff. Things that, it's going to improve my press, my jerk, my stuff, but also my muscle ups, maybe with a little bit of technique work, or my pull-up strength, whatever. But I need to pick the things I'm going to work on that really have a broad reach across skills. Is that what you're doing? So what are you training for now? Is it weightlifting, CrossFit?
I'm not training
hybrid?
for anything.
Okay.
I'm just training because I enjoy it.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's it. So if I take on some like kind of challenge I want to do, or it's just what I think is cool.
Okay.
It's just something that I look in the gym and be like, what would I like to compete with someone else against? Like, what's a stupid idea that me and a buddy would come up with that's like, let's see who can do it better.
Like an hour on the rower.
Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Like,
Yeah, I got you.
like whatever I find like just a cool thing to be able to do. I might spend like 3 or 4 weeks working towards that. Of like, hey, I got this new idea. I want to be able to.
Was that kind of the method for Isabel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it first started.
Yeah.
Was I thought, well, it first started because I thought, we'll get into our level method for a bit. We started people off years ago when we did the level method. Those higher end workouts, one of them being Isabel, one of them being Grace, that people have to complete. We put complete. That was your first step. You just had to do it.
Just had to do it. No time, just get it done.
You have to get it done within the time frame. And then we put a cap on people. And we said, all right, you got to do 1 a minute. We're not going to be here. We're not going to take all day. 1 a minute, because that means you have up to 30 minutes to do it. That means you can get it done in one class time. So 1 a minute. That's your, we'll mark it off as complete. And we said, we'll let you do more. We'll let you go slower than that, with a major warning that you shouldn't do it. But if that's absolutely the last thing you need to pass, and no matter what, you want to get it, we'll let you go. We'll let you go slower. But if you can't do it, if you can't do 1 a minute, just cut your losses. We'll test again next time. It's not a big deal. And I don't think we've had anyone do slower than 1 a minute.
Yeah.
So then it was like, I thought, how heavy could you go 1 a minute? So it just came. I thought, how heavy could it go? So then
Did you build up, or did you just go? Did you say, hey, let's try 330?
No, this was the first time I did it was by accident. So I think I started off at maybe I did one years before at 225.
Okay.
And then I did it at 275.
Okay.
And then I did one at 300. And then the first one I did at 330, we had some friends over, this was like right after Christmas. So we had friends over, some non-CrossFit approved beverages all Saturday. So I get to the gym on Monday, I feel terrible. And I feel so bad that, I start warming up. But it's one of those workouts, like you feel so bad to start that it can't get any worse. So like, you're tired, your head hurts. So to do a workout like that, since I'm already starting off and I feel terrible, like as you do the workout, you don't feel worse. Like you feel
like shit.
You feel the same. So I start off and I said, well, I'm just gonna see how many I can do. Yeah. So I did one, did another one. I think I did a third one. I thought, oh man, these are actually moving really fast. I said, I wasn't expecting them to go like this. So I get to like 5 or 6 and I finally be like, that's it, I'm going for it. I'm just gonna go for the 30. And then held on until I finished the 30. And then I thought, oh man, I can't believe I pulled that off. I wasn't expecting that. I just wanted to get a workout in to feel a little better. Yeah. And that was the first one. And then that was like 2 days, Dave came into the gym and was like, what the hell was that? I said, well, you don't know, I was hungover when I did that, when I did the first one. So he made it a challenge if you could do 20 minutes. And I was like, well, the first one I was hungover, I can do 20 minutes. So that one, it took a little bit to build up to.
Right. Because there's a math. There's definitely math to getting it. You got to know how long your reps take, and then know what cadence you have to hit.
Yeah,
Because if you miss one, you're done.
Yeah, I had tried previously, but I missed one rep. It was over.
It's over. You can't catch up.
No, there's no way at that pace.
Yeah.
So I missed one, and I said, all right. After that one, I thought, okay, I can definitely pull this off now.
Yeah.
The first one actually felt better. It just takes a certain level of focus, where as soon as you're not 100% focused, it's over because you miss some little piece, and when you're tired, you can't make those corrections during the lift.
Yeah.
But that was it. I just broke concentration on one, and was like, there's no way I'm catching up.
Do you remember what number rep it was?
I think it was 15.
Okay.
I think it was right at the halfway mark.
It wasn't 28, so.
And I think it was 16.
Yeah.
So I completed 15. Being halfway threw me off. So I went to go do 16 and was like, oh, I can't believe I missed that one. And then I went to go do the next one, and was like, there's no way I'm catching up.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I'm gonna come back to something I said, because I think I was talking out of my ass a little bit. I actually think about this 50 to 1 because I want to give it full credence. The 50 to 1 method for CrossFit fits in perfectly with how you were doing strongman. So I think I was wrong on how I said you'd have to find big bang for your buck exercises. I think you always do to give you your general indicators for if your strength is going up, but then all the other stuff is your practice.
Correct.
Yeah, so sorry. It took me a while for my brain to, but
So
that's a great way to do CrossFit because you have the stuff, whatever you need to work on, you're identifying your weaknesses basically, what's holding me back, these become your indicators, and then maybe other things that are weakness but you're not working on right now, or just skills you want to refine for the sport or introduce is now your practice or your skill work.
Right. So for the lifting aspect, it's easy to gauge. You can look at your efficiency in the lifts. So if you have a massive front squat and your clean's okay, it's like, well, you're obviously not very efficient at the clean.
Right.
It might be that you don't have the skill for it.
Right.
It might just be that you're not very fast.
Yep.
Either one of those two things, if you have this big gap between your front squat and your clean,
that's what you gotta
one of
fix.
those two need to get better.
Yep.
So you could do that for the snatch and the back squat.
Yep.
You can do that for all the lifting. That stuff is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that can apply to the gymnastics as well. If you're crushing your muscle ups, but then you go do on like a strict pull up, you're like, I'm not very good at these.
Right.
Like, you're really squeezing everything you can out of your pull up strength, and the single thing that would make you better is just being stronger through that basic movement of the pull up.
Yep.
Either you do more reps, you can do them weighted.
Right.
So if that was higher and you're efficient at the skill, those instead of 10 unbroken muscle ups, that might be the thing that gets you to 12, 13, 14, 15 and beyond. Or if you're looking at it like, man, I can crank pull-ups out all day long, but I
can't do a muscle up.
Right. Why not?
Yeah.
You might not have the flexibility, you might not know what, the technique. There's something there. So if you're looking at those just in a general sense of, man, I can't do any muscle ups, but I can jump on the bar and bang out 20 strict pull-ups. Like, well, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Something, you got to fix that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people get into this thing. Like, you have people that were former gymnasts that when it comes to certain movements, they just crush it.
Yeah.
And they're squeezing everything they can out of that pulling strength. And then you get some people, they're just inefficient. You need more practice at the movements. You don't need to put all your energy into getting stronger.
Right.
You're plenty strong. I remember, so I went to the aerobic capacity seminar with Chris Henshaw.
Right.
And he
Great
brought
coach.
up a concept that's the exact same thing that I'm talking about, but his is applied to aerobics.
Okay.
His answer, or his way of framing it every time, is, do you have to get stronger, or when someone can't do something, he asks, do you need to get stronger, or do you need to be fitter? One of the two. But that idea can be applied all around. So if you're failing your cleans, or what's your leg strength? Do you have the front squat capacity? It might be that you're soft on the catch. Why are you so soft on the catch? Is it because your technique is off, or your back is weak? It could be either. It could be that your technique is good. It's just that your upper back is weak, and you tip forward. you get crushed at the bottom of the squat.
Yep.
There's some element in there that you'd be better off prioritizing. And so instead of spending all these time on these things you're already good at, fix the upper
Try
back.
something.
Yeah.
Just try something.
Fix
Yeah.
the upper
See if
back
it works.
problem, and then all of a sudden, you clean 10 more pounds because you fixed that one piece that
Yeah.
you're missing.
Yeah.
So having those indicators is just a simple way of saying, where is my time best spent?
Right.
Because in any sport, especially any sport that has multiple modalities you have to train, which is both strongman and it's CrossFit,
Right.
you're making trade-offs all the time. And a lot of times people run out of time or they run out of energy to be able to improve those weaknesses. And so the reason that weakness exists, you're gonna have to stop putting time on the things you're already good at
Yeah.
and reallocate that towards that thing. But you might not even realize you might not even realize like, hey, this is what would make me improve the most. You're just, in a sense, I'm just gonna train harder.
It takes a lot of assessment and review and understanding. Yeah. And you might be wrong.
Yeah,
And
you're
so
wrong
you
all the
try for a
time.
couple weeks or whatever, it's not improving. Okay, that wasn't it, a switch, but it's
Mm-hmm.
a constant experiment to see. And the better, the stronger you are, probably the harder it is to figure out what you need to fix.
Yeah, it starts getting nitpicky.
Yeah, really nitpicky. Yeah.
Where the answer's not obvious.
Right,
The answer at first is almost, well, you just need more time.
right.
You need more practice. You got 4 things you got to fix.
Yeah.
But then you run into a point where it's like, I cannot figure this out. I need someone else to look at it because my perspective is just not there.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. So, do you use the 50-to-1 method? You're a coach at CrossFit, coach owner at CrossFit Valley View. Do you use the 50-to-1 method with athletes there?
Yeah.
Are they your?
They follow all the same principles.
Okay, so all your athletes or a certain group?
No, that's our general group class.
Okay.
So anytime we do like a lot of the strength work, a lot of them are in the habit of converting that into an estimated 1 rep max.
Got it. And so they're going for a record that day.
Yeah.
Yep. This is the one thing you want to be better at.
It'll be
today.
programmed. You're going for max reps.
Nice.
And then they'll look up on SugarWOD. What was my previous score, and they'll look at it and be like, oh, my previous score was 250.
And
All right,
use the
today,
chart. Yeah.
today I want 251.
Gotcha.
Whatever adds up. So we might program 80% for max reps or something, but they know, go up or down 5 pounds if you need to get what you want. We can dial in that progression a little bit better than trying to go for these big 5-10 pound PRs all the time. We just want 1 pound.
Yep.
We just want 1 pound over from these last 2 weeks, and that's it.
Yep.
And then we'll get another pound in another couple weeks. And that's what distinguishes the people that have the best long-term success, is that it's all built off of these little tiny improvements, but they're improving that while improving their conditioning and other metrics. So when you get to the end, it's not like, hey, I improved my strength, but I'm in worse shape. I'm not flexible.
Right.
I'm worse at all these other
Right.
things.
And that's your job to take care of that, is to make sure, hey,
Right.
I'm going to fit this all together.
Part
for
of that of slowing that progression down is that you have the time and the means to be able
Right.
to work on other
Other
things.
things.
If I'm prioritizing the lifting or the gymnastics or the conditioning to such a point where that's all my focus, you can't get better at
Other areas will
at
drop.
other areas.
Yeah. It's got to be, I would say you said their long-term success. I would also say one reason for their long-term success is they keep showing up.
Yeah.
Because they're excited about like this week I get to do better in some things. Like that's got to be motivating. Like I beat it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's really tough. It's really tough to tell someone like, hey, you're not going to have the opportunity to show that you
months.
progressed for 3 months down the
Right,
road when
right.
we go for a new clean and
We do
jerk
it
max.
every week, every day, really.
But if you're looking at like, oh man, on the one hand, you're like, oh man, I get to go for it today.
It's gonna hurt, but I get to do it.
You're more motivated to go
Yeah.
in and do it.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I'll do with some people is I'll actually I'll take a whiteboard and I'll write out, this is what your estimated 1 rep max is for all these reps. If you do 5, it's gonna be 250. If you do 6, it's gonna be 258.
Oh,
if
you
you do
give 'em
7,
options.
so
Yeah.
when they're going through it, they're watching that board as they go through their reps. Like, hey, if you wanna be a 300-pound squatter, it's gonna take 225 for 10.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at it, and it sets in,
Yeah.
Before it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a hard set. So no, we're gonna write it out, and you're gonna visualize it, and you're gonna look at it. If you want your 300-pound back squat, it's right there in front of you. It's right today, not down the road, not weeks from now. This is what you have to do it.
Yeah.
If you can do this today, we can easily taper down and get you to peak for a 300-pound back squat.
Yep.
But that starts right here at this 225 for 10.
Awesome.
And then all of a sudden, when reps 5, 6 come around, where it starts to really suck, they'll push through and grind to get those 10. So you start to see, and then after people do it one time, they start developing just a totally different mentality of attacking their workout.
It's tougher.
Right, they have something to push for. Then that 300 becomes 301. That 301 becomes 302.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for a year. They've done it 50 times. And so 50 times in a row, this person, week after week after week has come in, set a goal, and achieved it.
Yeah.
And so now when you take someone, let's say they go from 250 to 300, they've proven to themselves that they're capable 50 times. They have a success rate of 100%. So now when they say, hey, I'm gonna do this weight for this reps, it's not like, oh, well, kind of maybe.
No, they have confidence.
They have confidence in themselves.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely gonna be able to do that. So when they say like, hey, I'm going for that, they get it. And that continues on for a long period of time.
Yep.
They have that mentality. Once the progress really slows, where it's like, okay, now this person's really strong.
Yeah.
Once that progress slows and actually they have to really battle for extra progression, their mentality has developed over that time. And a lot of times you don't develop that. You just show up, you work hard, you'll continue to progress for a while. But while we're doing that, they're building that mentality. So when your rate of progression slows, they'll fight for it. We say, hey, it's not going to be a pound every week. It might be a pound every other week. It might be a pound a month you're shooting for.
Yeah.
They'll stick with it and be like, oh
Exactly.
yeah, I'll get it.
You got the mentality for
Right.
it. Yeah. No. So to me, that's amazing. I'd love to come see your guys train because you're building fire breathers right there. That's the mentality of a fire breather. So you alluded to another method. It's not really a method of training. You alluded to another part of your whole system of training called the levels. And we'll direct to your website because you have a beautiful chart on there that we were looking at last night and got me kind of fired up. You have a very analytical mind. It's very organized, and it's just the way it's laid out. So I want to make sure we have time to cover this in depth. It's not that it's complicated, but there's a lot of pieces to it. So the level system, I'm going to give a very short overview as I understand, then you can dig in and make sure I don't make a mistake here. But it's 7 levels. Is it seven levels across? So you start at CrossFitter, you finish at Fire Breather, and each level has a bunch of requirements that you need to fulfill before you move on. It's sort of like a belt system in a martial arts.
It is a belt system.
And you just tick those off. And it starts obviously at CrossFitter. They're scaled down, regress. They're basic skills, and as you move up, they become harder and harder and harder to accomplish. And in order to move on, I really like this piece, so hopefully you talk about it. You obviously have to hit the skills. But even if you're super gifted, a beast, and you can hit these without really training that hard, if you don't show up to the gym and participate and be consistent with your training, you're not allowed to promote over. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. So now with that intro, teach me about the levels.
So my wife started in martial arts.
Okay.
So that's why it follows the same color scheme as a traditional belt
Gotcha.
pattern.
Okay.
So when you first start off, most of the first level is just you have to show up and actually come to class. There's pretty basic conditioning marks that you have to hit. And you start off.
It's the same skills across?
Same category.
Same categories?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll transition from, we want people to be able to do a pull-up with any kind of band. Okay. No restriction. As long as you can get up on the bar, full extension at the bottom, get over the bar, we'll count it. We just want you to show up and start putting in the work at first. All the way to be able to complete muscle-ups on the rings.
Gotcha.
So each one of those will progress all the way into that last level of fire.
And how many total categories?
There's 4 categories. Starts off with weightlifting, and then gymnastics, conditioning, and then benchmark workouts.
Gotcha. Okay.
Each one has 15 different requirements. Or
Gotcha.
15, there's 15 total.
Across the 4 categories. Check. Okay, I've interrupted enough, so I'll let you start back with the belt system from your
So
work.
there's 15 different marks. That's gone down as we've got rid of things that were redundant.
Okay.
Where if you can pass that one, you're going to pass this one
Right.
too. We'll just scratch that.
Nice.
So the whole point was to have a system that wasn't subjective the way that some martial arts belting systems are. The premise of CrossFit is that it's measurable and it's repeatable. Everything is objective. So each one of those is an objective mark. You lifted this percentage of your body weight, or you hit this time on the run.
Right.
You performed this. There's no arguing. When someone gets to that level, everybody knows exactly what it took
Right.
to be able to wear that shirt around.
Awesome.
There's no questions about it.
Oh, they get a shirt in that color?
We have you wear a shirt of each color.
That's
from
awesome.
orange, yellow, green, all the way to the last one is black.
Oh, man.
So as you progress, we set that as this is what we expect someone consistently training hard, showing up to the gym in their 20s will get to over the course of 4 years. So if you show up at 21, you're here, you're consistent, we'll get you to this level at 25. And if that doesn't apply to, if any of those things don't apply to you, don't expect it in 4 years. If you're not that age, if you're not able to train that often,
Right.
if you're not as consistent, you're not going to get there in 4 years. It's going to take longer. So this is like an ideal situation of what we expect for people.
Yep.
And we've modified that from purely being about the performance. We overlap that with the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum.
Okay.
Now, we have these first ranks where you start off on the end of sickness, presence of sickness and disease. Then our top ranks, or at the top of the curve of that continuum, we have our middle 2 ranks, which represents absence of sickness and disease. Your blood pressure, your cholesterol, all of your marks are in normal range.
Right.
And then at the tail end of it, which is our fire breather level, that represents an additional hedge against sickness and disease. So when people show up, we explain it as our goal is to get you as fast as we can to wellness. And we're going to keep you there the rest of your life. That's the goal. Our goal is not to reach this fire breather mark. That's not what we're expecting of you. So if you can't get there, that's not anything wrong with you, or you shouldn't be ashamed. We're not expecting you to be there. Those last 3 ranks represent the sport. That is, if you have the time and this is what you enjoy doing, this will give you an additional hedge. You'll have additional protection. Anything in your genetics or anything that you're unlucky about in your life, you have additional protection.
Right.
But we don't need you to be there. We need you to be at well. And that's our job. Get you to well as fast as possible. You're there the rest of your life. So that shift has actually made a huge difference, because people start getting a little frustrated that each time they're not progressing. And it's like, not everyone's supposed to be a fire breather.
Right.
Not everyone even wants to be one. It takes a lot of work to get to that last rank.
Absolutely.
Each one of those things on its own is really hard to do.
Yep.
So we overlaid, that level system with that continuum. So now everyone in the gym understands what that means. And we use that first as an assessment when someone shows up. They go through our intro program. We have that first rank completed. We go through each one of those. They know, what they can lift. They know what
So
their
they've
condition.
done all 15 metrics as part of their intro program.
Correct.
Just to see where they're at.
Yep. This is our measurement on day 1. If they can pass that, they get their orange shirt.
Wow.
You're starting off, you're at orange. This is your first level. That forms what we prescribe to people in terms of how to get fitter, because there's certain things that will pop up over time. Like, hey, how come all your condition, you're 3 levels ahead on the weightlifting, but you're way back here on the conditioning. Like, I kind of skipped all those running days, or certain things will pop up. But that is our measurement of, this is where your time is best spent on your fitness. You are at this level here for the gymnastics, but you're struggling on the weightlifting. And that's just a conversation of, for some people, you know what, I don't really like lifting weights. I don't like pushing myself that hard. And I need to do a better job of it. that's a lot of times that's
Right.
that's the only answer.
Right.
And they'll say, you know what, I kind of go with lightweight all the time. You know, I always scale the weight down, and I do the hardest gymnastics movement because I'm really good at them. And that lets both the coach and the athlete know, like, okay, for the next 6 months, we're working on correcting these imbalances. We need to, your workouts should be the opposite of what this thing says. You know, these areas that we're struggling in, that's our emphasis. These areas that you're really good at, we're gonna stay just as good. Don't just totally abandon them, but you don't have to emphasize those every workout. So it allows people a way to see their progress over time
Right.
and know where's your time best spent. And this forms people's roadmap because when they show up at the door, they don't really have specific goals. That's why they're going to CrossFit. They go to CrossFit because they're not playing a sport. They're not
Right.
playing, they're not doing some other thing. So whether someone, you know, and one of the key tenets of CrossFit has always been, you know, your needs vary by intensity, you know, not by kind.
Right.
And so whether someone's grandma steps in, or we have some people that, you know, they got done playing, you know, Division I sports. They come in and we ask them their goals, and their goals is normally like, I don't know. I want to be healthier and I want to be fitter, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to get there. That's why I'm here talking to you guys. And so when we break out that chart, we go through the assessment, and over time, it gives people goals to shoot for. So now when they're looking at what is a healthy, strong 20 or 30 or 40, and then we modify the chart for 50 and beyond.
Okay.
What does that look like? Well, this is what it looks like. You know, this is where your weightlifting should be. This is where your gymnastics should be. This is where all these things should be. And so when they show up to the gym, they now have a set of goals to strive for. I completed my orange. All right, what's my next level?
Right.
What are the things that I have to do? So they're looking at it as, you know, if we have a timed 400-meter run, they already know ahead of time, hey, I'm trying to break 2 minutes. That's it. Who do I know that
Because
runs?
these metrics that you're measuring show up periodically in workouts.
Yeah, we'll throw some in throughout time.
Yeah.
So if we have a
It's an
benchmark,
opportunity to test it.
if
yeah.
we have a benchmark workout that comes up, they
Yeah.
know ahead of time, hey, I got to get 7 minutes on that.
Yeah.
Or when the back squat comes up, they're going for a PR. We put up 2 big charts in the gym. They'll go over, and now they're looking at it like, oh, I need to squat 150 today. So it gives people a way to set goals without having to come up with them on their own.
Yep.
Without having to come up with, because when you first start, you don't know.
You don't know.
It's after I do CrossFit and I see what it can do for me, now I know what I want more of.
Right.
But at first you're like, you know, I want to be stronger.
You don't know what you don't know. Yeah.
And so over time, by the time people get to those last ranks,
Yeah.
like by the time people get to, certainly by well before Fire Breather, they've been doing it a long time and their interests might change a little bit.
Right.
So by that point, hey, maybe I want to do Spartan races. Maybe I want to run a marathon. Maybe I want to do a weightlifting competition. Their goals might change, and that chart's not as applicable anymore because they're going to specialize in something because that's what they really like. But your first couple years, you just don't know.
But we still want them in that band that's the wellness band.
Yeah.
Regardless of where they stray off to.
Yeah,
That'll be their check the box. I'm maintaining the spot I want to be, the minimum
Right.
spot.
Once you get beyond that wellness stage, and we're at the stage that's representing sport and more of a hedge, at that point, like for instance, the
have some
gymnastics,
lagging and yeah.
the gymnastics skills become too complicated.
Right.
So people will be like, you know what, I just don't want to spend the time doing that
Gotcha.
because I want to do this other thing
Yeah.
that's outside the gym.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You can hit all of these marks. All of your traditional health markers are in range where they're supposed to be. That's a good plan. Do something that you enjoy because that's going to keep you training and healthy for the next 10 years. You don't have to specialize in CrossFit. Now you're not looking at getting better just at CrossFit. It's purely how can CrossFit help me get better at something else that I enjoy.
Yeah. How often are they kind of retesting or just confirming where they are and assessing where the imbalances are?
We're now testing every 6 months.
Okay.
That's
So a full kind of panel of everything every 6 months to see the full picture.
yeah.
Okay.
We started off at 3 months. That was way too fast. That was way too soon.
Yeah.
We moved to 4 months. That was still really pushing it. And now we moved to 6 months. And 6 months has worked really well. Part of that is our demographics, because as a gym is open longer, you start having members that have been there for a while.
Right.
So as people work on those later ranks, the 3-month testing is like, yeah, dude, this is really hard to get to.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to sit down and review it or test it because
I'm still working on it.
yeah, this is going to take me a long time to hit.
Yeah.
So more of our clients have moved to being there for a long time, and they've gotten a little older in age from when we first opened. So those later ranks, as more people are working on the later ones, we don't need to test as often as when we first, because this was implemented right when the gym first started.
Okay. Yep.
We don't have to test as often. And the people that are earlier on, especially because we really increased our intro program, we will test people outside of that traditional cycle, but those are people that are working with a coach one-on-one.
Okay.
That'll just be part of what they do. Usually if someone I want to improve, their program is based off of how they're performing on those levels. Hey, we're lagging on this, we need to spend more time here.
Yeah.
And then once you pass, then you promote, you get your new color shirt.
Awesome. Is there basically a set week, like maybe one in June, one in December, where there's
Yeah,
it's
it
full
is
testing,
right
or
now.
2 weeks?
April and October.
Okay, awesome. And so everybody knows that when the programming comes up for those weeks, filtered in there will be these 15 challenges that are going to, maybe over the course of 2 weeks or 1 week or however long it takes, they're going to be taken care of there and there.
Yeah, probably in the month leading up, I might throw a couple things in there,
Yeah.
just as part of class.
Yeah.
So when they pull up, when we test it, we do it Tuesday, Thursday for 2 weeks. So you
Okay,
got 4
gotcha.
days that those things will all be spread out.
Nice.
But in the month before that, I might throw something in there earlier on. So this is your first chance to see if you're going to pass. So if you're trying to run a new 400 meter, let's say, we threw one in a month early, you got to break a minute 30 or something. You'll know ahead of time, hey, man, I got 132. Like, I know I need to prioritize that when this comes up. Like, I need to know that I'm fresh and this is going to be my best run. So if let's say you got 132 at the end of a workout a month prior, you're looking at it like, okay, I'm going to run 129, but I need to make sure that's prioritized.
Yeah.
I need to be set up correctly for that. So we'll throw a few things in leading up to it where you don't have to do the full spectrum of challenges for those 4 days, because it's hard to try to hit that back squat mark and come in and then hit your clean and jerk mark in that time frame. For those higher ranks, hitting a max back squat and a max deadlift and a max clean and jerk and a max snatch, it's just unrealistic.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're going off of numbers that they've accumulated
Right.
in those 6 months. And we use SugarWOD. They can go back to their logbook and see, fill out what you've already accomplished so that you're not spending those 4 days retesting things that you've already passed. So it's also a way to keep people tracking their weights and on top of things versus just they're not showing up to the gym and just picking a random weight or random numbers to work off of. They know what their max is. So when we write out percentages, everyone that's been there for certainly more than 6 months, they know exactly what they're supposed to do. And it makes class run really fast and people get way more out of it. Because when they show up, they know everything they're doing today. Versus, I don't really know what my back squat is. I don't know what I can do. And
They know
everything
the
is just
goal.
more efficient.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to have to bring you back here because I want to talk about some nutrition, but what I also want to talk about is how the 50-to-1 method, just generally how you program to support all this. So that might be a little bit of a big topic to handle right now. So let's put that to the side, but I'm going to keep it up in here. You're obviously meticulous about everything, just looking at how you train, how you've designed these methods of training. I see the pictures on Instagram of your fridge. I mean, it's all your meals prepped, ready to go. talk to me about what you're doing personally for your own nutrition plan, and then what's carried over for that into your affiliate.
So I like, one of the best ways that I've seen it explained for athletes was through Dan John. And he framed it in a totally different way. I haven't seen anyone else describe it. And his was, as an athlete, you need to not be thinking of how you restrict yourself, and you need to be thinking of what are you putting in your body to repair and fuel yourself. And so he had this thing with athletes that were struggling to with keeping their weight down. Mm-hmm. And his was, he creates a list of foods of all really good, healthy items. And his was, he tells his throwers, once you eat this list of foods every single day, when you're done, you can eat whatever you want after that, at the very end of the day. So it would be, he would list out, like, I want you to eat this many pounds of meat, this many eggs, this many pounds of fruit, this much vegetable. List out all these things, potato, everything that you need. And they say, once you're done eating all of that stuff, once you've put in the food that you need to perform well, after that point, go eat whatever you want. And his whole point was, you're not gonna eat anything, because if you're getting your calorie needs met through nutritious food, he's like, you won't have the appetite to eat a bunch of junk. And he's like, the only reason you're asking me about eating this junk food is because you're not eating the healthy stuff first. There's no way you're gonna eat this big, salmon and fruit and vegetable and then want to eat pizza afterwards. He's like, because this is too much food to eat. And I've always viewed it from the sense of, if you're training really hard, it gets viewed as a way to eat a bunch of junk.
You justify it.
Which from a pure calorie standpoint is true. But the harder you're training, the more the body's breaking down. So your nutritional needs, the nutrient need is higher. The tendons are breaking down more, the ligaments are stressed more, everything is stressed more. You need higher quality food to come to justify that more so than the average person. Right. And so it gets twisted where it's like, you might look back and be like, oh, well, a Quest bar and a bowl of Lucky Charms just is not going to do what steak and potatoes do. Right. And we can argue the science about it, and we can go on and on about this study says this study says that. But I look at all the old guys I know, and every single old, strong guy I know has the same habits. They're all the same. Right. From what they eat to how they take care of themselves to how they sleep. Every single old, strong guy I know that's 50 plus all does the same stuff. Yep. And that's because no one who doesn't do that makes it to there. They
make it, right?
They broke down at some point. Yeah. So, if you're unlucky, it's your 20s. If you're average, it'll probably be your 30s. And if you're lucky, it'll be your 40s. Right. But none of them make it to 50 plus, old, strong, capable, without the same set of habits. And I don't see these guys eating junk. I don't see these guys sleeping 4 hours a day. They sleep well, they eat well, they do all these same things. So if the goal is to get to that stage, so then I need to do that now. I remember, so one of my first introduction to strongman was in Sequim, Washington. I went up to Sequim, and I asked the guy there about a strongman named Grant Higa. And Grant Higa's a legend in the Northwest. Okay. In strongman, he's a legend there. And so when I was in college, I used to go into, after my workouts, this place called Local Boys. And there's a picture of Grant Higa doing an axle press. And I used to think, man, I want to be on that wall. Like, I want to be on that wall right next to him. So I asked him, I said, because they know each other well. And we're like, what is it that separates these competitors? Why are these guys old and doing well? And I think he was in his 40s at the time. And he said, I've never seen him get hurt, never been injured. Right. And the other thing is I noticed that, which was uncommon for a lot of strongmen, he didn't eat any junk food.
Definitely.
He was, every time you go to his competitions up there, after weigh-ins, everyone goes to sushi.
Right.
And I always see this guy eating rice and meat and all this traditional Hawaiian food, and it's always like rice and meat,
Yeah.
you know. And he's a big guy, but I said
Not eating pizza.
he's not eating
Yeah.
junk.
Yeah.
It's all you know, good stuff. And I said there's something there, because every single guy I see that's not getting injured is none of them are eating junk food.
Right.
All these old guys, none of them are eating junk food. So when I do my diet now, I prioritize get the good stuff in first.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the one thing that pops up all the time is, you know, how much protein you should eat.
Yeah.
And so I do body weight in grams of protein.
Yep.
That's about standard that you're going to see everywhere recommended.
Yep. Yep.
Spread out evenly through the day. 50 grams of protein, high quality, boom, it's done.
Yep.
If it's all whole food, you probably have enough fat in there.
Yep.
You
Agreed.
don't really need to add anything else. So that's first, and not because it's the most important, because it's the hardest to do.
Right.
It's hard to get that. There's always
Yeah.
other things you can get, like at a gas station even.
Mm-hmm.
So get that in first, add everything else up to, as CrossFit would say, intake that a level that will support exercise but not body fat.
Yep.
And that's it. So I do 5 meals a day, 50 grams in protein in each, and then some type of carbohydrate to bring the intake level up.
Potato, rice.
Potato, usually rice.
Mm-hmm.
It lasts longer in the fridge. Less potato just because it doesn't last as long.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll add other things on top, just for flavor and variety and enjoyment.
Yeah.
But I like that Dan John approach. Eat all this good food first. Once you're done, then you can have whatever else. So I'll do stuff with the kids at the end of the day. Sometimes I'll steal some of their food, or they come home with something, and I don't limit myself on all that. But the priority has to be focusing on get good food in first, because you need that to repair and recuperate. And I don't train I don't train with enough volume where I don't have the hunger to be able to eat enough good food.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I was doing something where, you know, if I was doing like marathon training or something else like that, where your calorie needs are extremely high, then I would be like, okay, I need to do something.
On top.
Yeah, I need
After
to,
all the good food's been eaten.
just because you have to get that calorie mark no matter what.
Yeah.
But for me, I have the appetite to only eat quality food. Someone else at my size, maybe not. My appetite is pretty big. It's unusually big. So I actually wouldn't recommend how I eat for other people.
Okay.
Just because, like, dude, you're not gonna enjoy it. Like, you're gonna be too full. You're gonna be stuffed and like, it's just miserable all the time because you don't have the appetite for it.
Right.
But for as much as you can, make it as good as make it as high quality as possible.
Yeah.
And so we organize our fridge where
So maybe those weren't only your meals.
not just mine. So we organize them where mine have purple lids,
Nice.
and then my wife is all green lids.
Yeah.
So when we go to the gym in the morning, I don't even think about it. Grab these meals, put them aside. That's it.
That's it.
Like Monday through Friday, there's no thinking involved with it. It's all cooked ahead of time. It's all ready to go.
And it's weighed and measured in there.
Yeah.
And when did you start weighing and measuring? Because that's something we've talked about in CrossFit. There's been a lot of resistance on it, but who taught you how to do that?
I was doing that probably since I was like 18.
No way.
Yeah. And I started doing that because I was 300 pounds.
Okay.
So that was
to lean down from 300.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was just because I need to bring my weight down. I'm like, well, then just measure it, and that was it. And then I haven't gone very long where I wasn't doing that. And for me, it doesn't take very much time, but the difference it makes is massive. And that's because for me, the number one thing I have to manage is my appetite.
Right.
Even if it's healthy food, I could still eat plenty of it.
Right.
So I only
Still need to quantify.
I only weigh and track it just because I have the appetite to still eat all quality food and go beyond my calorie mark.
Okay.
Not everyone does.
Right.
For a lot of people, like if you just change what you're eating, you don't have the appetite to overeat. You just don't.
Yeah. It's kind of a built-in system of decreasing your,
Yeah,
your
like
calories.
there's only so much steak
Right.
for most people that they can eat, where
Right.
it's like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like you just won't overeat these things.
Yeah.
My wife is mostly the same way, probably less to a degree. So we always weigh it because when she started in CrossFit, it was with Zone. So
Right.
she was already
Okay.
used to the portioning and
Yeah.
all that. So
Yeah.
that wasn't really a change for her. It was like, oh, this is what I'm used to. This is normal for CrossFit when it first started.
Yeah.
So I did it just because to me it makes more sense.
Right.
But if someone else, like, they just don't have a very big appetite, then it's probably unnecessary. And we've evolved that over time as we had kids. Because before we really weren't that diligent, because when we didn't have kids, we would have time to cook at night.
Right.
So-
every night. Yeah.
Every night, or at least we would only do like 2 or 3 days at a
Right.
time.
Yeah.
I'd cook the next 2 days of food and then be like, nah, no big deal. I'll cook Wednesday night.
Right.
Now it's like, well, Wednesday night comes up, and between like the bath routine and reading a book and all this other stuff, that doesn't get done.
Right.
So we started realizing a couple things. One, we pig out too much on the weekends. So I was like, nah, we gotta still have it at least Saturday
Because
morning.
usually your food runs out Friday, right?
Right.
If you prep for the week, it runs out Friday.
And second, we just totally gave up on being able to cook midweek.
Right.
Of like, you know what, that's so much hassle with 2 kids at home and then trying to cook food
Yeah.
with getting these guys to bed,
Yep.
that either the kids are destroying the house while you're cooking. It's just a totally miserable experience. So then we're like, you know what, it's got to be done Monday all the way until Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing that we do
Extra
just
containers, man.
just because that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
If they were older, if they were like 12 plus, we probably wouldn't be that diligent about it. Like, this is unnecessary. This is, we have time to be able to cook and do this, but that's just something that we started because it was like, this is where we're failing at.
Yeah.
And I don't see a different way to make it better.
Yeah.
This is the best solution for now.
That makes sense. What of your nutrition knowledge and what you're doing do you transfer as a messaging to your affiliate then, to your athletes and clients?
The nutrition in me is more complicated than the training. I'd say it's a lot more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
The training, the number one thing that we almost always say is move more. For where we are, a lot of people have a very difficult commute.
Okay.
And our message is almost always move more, get to the gym. Like, we don't need to go off of any of those other things. Like,
The rest will take care of itself when you get there.
if you can show up,
Yeah.
I said the number one thing that separates the people with the most success here is who shows up.
Right. Love that.
Everything else is second to that.
Another
It's not
Dan
even
John.
close.
Dan John, just show up.
And with the nutrition, it's too specific for that individual. So we don't have a clear cut, like, this is always what we tell people to do, except quality of food. That's the only thing that is a consistent message, is getting people to eat the highest quality food possible. For some people, the reason that they struggle is environment. Like, they live at home, their spouse might not be supportive, or they live with their parents. It's the environment that they're in makes it difficult. Or they go to work, and when I go to work, there's a big box of donuts there,
Right.
sitting ready for me. My coworkers want me to go out.
Yeah.
They don't have a support system in place, and it makes it really difficult. Some people they're too restrictive. Like, they dive head first, do something really, really hard. They go from no meal prep to everything is going to be perfect all the time. There's all these common pitfalls that people run into. So when someone comes to us for nutrition advice, it's almost guaranteed that we've ran into the same issues before, but 2 people almost always have like radically different things holding them back.
Right.
It's unusual that they have the same thing. If we have a group of 10 people, like if we do nutrition challenge, we sit down with 10 people. All 10 people have different things that are
Holding them back.
that are making it hard to get their nutrition in.
Yep.
With the movement, it's not.
Right.
It's like every single one of you guys need to move more, and we need to show up at the gym, and we're gonna slowly add progression.
Yeah.
Like the prescription is within a pretty tight window, and then on the nutrition, it's really broad.
So maybe the quality, just the message of quality, really hitting that is your 80-20.
Yeah, and the quality is because the higher the quality is, a lot of other
Takes care
things
of a
take
lot of things.
up
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
Like your macronutrients are better.
Mm-hmm.
The amount is better. That if you can maximize the food quality, everything else improves.
Right.
It's really difficult to see to get your macros wrong, like horribly wrong.
Right. Yeah.
If you're eating quality stuff.
Yeah.
It can be off, but it's not going to be.
Falls into 30% protein-ish in that area, and it just falls into place. And then on an individual basis, you can address their.
We'll address individual habits, and
Nice.
Our first goal is usually to figure out, what is the single thing that's making this most difficult.
Yeah.
I have one guy right now. He's a corrections officer, and he's done extremely well. And his answer was, "I need to treat this like I treat my work." He's like, everything that we do is regimented because, we need certain safeguards in place.
Right.
So he's like, I show up to work, we follow these protocols all the time.
Yeah.
And so with his nutrition, the plan was, now that he knows this is how many calories he's eating, here's his macros, here's what your meals are going to look like, he just took and did it.
Yep.
And then every meeting we've had after that has been, I'm like, man, I don't really have to tell you, I don't really have a suggestion for you because you're on track,
Yep.
you're making great progress.
Perfect.
It's not difficult for you to do.
Keep doing that.
You just applied what you already knew
Yeah.
to this area.
Yeah.
And within that framework, this has been really easy for you.
Yeah.
And before, the struggle just was he just didn't have a plan. And so without a plan, it was like, oh man, maybe I eat out too much or this and that. But as soon as he had just a plan of like, okay, go do this, that was it.
Yeah. The
And-
simple solution is often the right one.
And that worked extremely well
Yeah.
for him. And that doesn't always work for other people because, if someone has kids and your kid's sick and now your whole plan is thrown off the window because your schedule is off. That might not work for someone else, but for him, so you just do it like you do these other things, and it's easy for you.
Yeah. You're not only an affiliate owner and coach, you're also a certified financial planner, correct? Just from that field, are there basic business principles that you can think of that you'd share with other affiliate owners to make sure that their affiliate is not only viable but thriving? Because the only way to get the results we want, the impact on the community we want, is for these gyms to survive and thrive. And so any advice or thoughts you have on the business side of it?
Well, I think from a general business perspective, you have to pay yourself first.
Okay.
That money has to go into your pocket so that you understand what you're putting into the gym. You understand your value. You understand what you're creating for people.
Because it is a cost. Whether you
Right.
actually pay yourself or not, the cost is there.
Right.
Right.
So you got to pay yourself first.
Okay.
Second, and this is kind of like a higher level thing. I don't think people have fully bought into to how important it is for your gym to survive and to create an asset for yourself. Something that is putting money in your pocket. And you can't help people if your gym's not doing well financially. Either you're going to quit or you're going to be forced to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the very best thing that you could do for your community is make sure it survives. Make sure 10, 20, 30 years from now There's one place people can go in town. They can show up. They're with a group of like-minded people, and that's like their little health oasis.
Oasis, absolutely.
Away from everything else. Like when you go down the main street of a lot of cities, fast food,
Yep.
liquor store, fast food.
Yep.
That's what you go on. But you got one spot. Everyone has the same goal. Everybody wants to see you succeed. No one's encouraging you to do, things that you don't want to do or aren't good for you. So you first start with the premise that needs to exist. And then second, you should think, what would happen if I got hit by a bus? Would this oasis for all these people go away? And now I got this huge group of people that you care about, they're not going to have that anymore. So if you run it like a business and you really buy in to how do I make this an asset? How do I make this something that I could sell to another gym owner? Because another gym owner is not going to come in and buy your gym because they don't know those people.
Right.
They haven't built a relationship with those clients. So they're not going to come in and take on this debt and take on this building and take on all this responsibility unless it's financially in their best interest.
Right.
So by creating the gym that is doing well financially, that you could take and sell to someone else and be like, yeah, that's a quality business. I will step in and take care of it. You're making sure it survives and that this is going to run forever. So if you don't do that and it can't sustain you, then you're either going to quit or be forced to quit. And so I would say, number one, pay yourself first, and then make sure that, you change your perspective, around the whole thing as the gym does need money to survive. And trying to view everything purely in terms of how you personally can sacrifice and help, which is most gym owners' first resort.
Yeah.
Do more, help out more. If you're not being compensated for that and there's nothing coming in, you can't do as much good for other people. It's
not sustainable.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And so it can't just rely on you working really hard. Now, that doesn't mean that other people have to step in and volunteer. That means that they're paying the business enough that certain things can happen. The building is maintained. The equipment is upgraded when it needs to be upgraded. There's money to reach out to new members. There's money for advertising. There's money for all these things. That's what it's supporting. And so the rate that you're charging people is not about what goes into your pocket. That's what is needed for the operations, and that's how you're going to reach new people and grow and make a difference. Without it, it's just going to stick to this little group of people, and you can't make the impact. And so when the issue of rates or the issue of service or any of those things come up, you have to understand that you're not going to be able to make an impact unless you create the business that is an asset.
Yep.
And without it, it's not going to exist.
And from that mindset, then charging, I think a lot of coaches are not afraid, but they don't want to, say this is what my rate is. They're happy to give a discount or charge less and everything. But really what you're doing is you're shooting yourself in the foot there. You're minimizing your impact and not allowing the business to grow and become the asset you said. So it is a thought that, hey, no, to provide the value I want, this is what we need to charge.
Right. And if you think of it in a different way, if you're undercharging, then that means you are going to go find money in a different way.
Right.
Now, what if you
You
charge,
have to make up that difference.
what if you charge what was appropriate? You're essentially working and then donating that back in.
Right,
So instead, if you charge, now instead of working on this other thing, you could take all that time and dedicate all of that to changing lives through fitness. You're not supplementing that. You're effectively making a donation out of your own pocket, whether that's from your own time, because your time is valuable, or because you go get money from somewhere else to support your lifestyle. Either one, that would give you time to make a bigger difference. I lost my train of thought for a second. But that is the
Yeah, and well, it's exactly what you're saying. It's a numbers game. You understand the spreadsheet, so whether or not, if you don't charge what you need to charge, you're going to spend the time to make up for that shortfall somewhere. It's going to come out of your pocket.
You know, there was a time where we view CrossFit, in terms of health as the preventative side, and what a lot of CrossFit coaches would benefit from learning is if you go into the cure side and look at how much insurance pays these people to cure problems that you're preventing from happening in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
They will pay, people are getting paid 5 times what you're making to cure a problem than what you're making to prevent that issue from happening.
Absolutely.
So you go in the physical therapy realm, sessions are $200+.
Yeah.
People don't come out of pocket for it. It gets billed to insurance.
Yeah.
But you have to make an assessment. Do you think that this person performing heavy back squats under the care of a professional is better for their long-term joint health than this person doing
Physio ball.
some
I hear you.
something of varying effectiveness? There's some phenomenal physical therapists out there that produce incredible results.
Yes.
There's some, the results aren't quite as good.
Right.
But both of those people are making 5 times what you're making because they're getting subsidized by insurance and you're not. So it's if you were to view that session cost and be like, wait a second, this person got hurt and now they have to pay $200 a session from insurance to go to this physical therapist. And now I'm worried about the rate that I charge. But this person has the benefit, A, of healthier joints than what this person had, and all the enjoyment of their life not being injured and being stronger and fitter. Where's the value creation? Are you creating more value by having this person lift heavy with great technique? Or is this person creating more value once they're hurt and they're just taking them from they can't function to they can function just in a regular lifestyle.
Right.
They can get in and out of the car, they can shower, but they're not taking them beyond that.
Beyond it, right.
And so pull up a chart, see what these guys are getting covered through insurance, and realize that, hey, and they're still getting paid if they don't show up. So
Yeah.
this person's making $200 a session, and you're worried about what rate you charge.
That kind of highlights the value proposition this CrossFit coach is providing.
Yeah,
right
and
there.
it's because CrossFit, that money only comes out of people's pockets.
Instead of I can just bill to insurance.
It's when you realize like the reason your insurance is so high is because these guys are getting paid $200 a session.
Right.
So you need to realize what these other professionals are charging. And if you're going to say that you are improving people's health, now the prevention is never valued as much as the cure. That's just the reality. No one ever cares about preventing a problem. They glorify like once you have a problem and someone can solve it, that gets all the attention. That gets all of the that's seen as more valuable. But you're not seeing all the people who don't go there because they were strong and they didn't slip. Or instead of a major injury, it's a minor injury that you can treat at home. You're not seeing that.
Yeah.
And so because you don't, part of it is you don't see it, so you don't think it's as valuable as it really is.
Right. Yeah.
But when you look at what is the cost of type 2 diabetes in older age, what is the cost of heart disease, what is the cost of all these things, and you realize that there is no investment that you could make, that you put that money in and then it would cover the cost down the road.
Yes.
There's nothing that you're going to earn that kind of rate of return to cover the cost of diabetes, cover having to go to physical therapy. There's nothing.
Right.
Nothing will give you the rate of return as paying for your health and fitness early on in life and using that over a lifetime.
Right.
And when you go ask anybody, ask anyone who's 80, 85 and say, what would you pay for another year? or what would you pay to roll the clock back 5 years?
Right.
And the answer is, well, I would pay anything.
Or to have this capacity at your age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would pay anything.
Yeah.
I'll give you that car.
Yeah.
If you could tell me I'll have another year, I'll give you the car.
Yeah.
So you should make those decisions now with that in mind, that when you get to that end point, all of this stuff that you accumulated, you'd get rid of it and sell if that meant extra time or that meant extra ability.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be making decisions today with that mindset. I'm going to trade some of my health for anything else.
Right.
Because down the road, I'd gladly give that stuff up in order to have the health that I made that trade-off early on.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of coaches, don't see them as part of the healthcare system. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But part of CrossFit has been about improving health, always from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Through that idea of the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum, and through increased work capacity,
Yep.
that keeps you healthy.
Yep.
You just don't see it until later on in life when people hit certain ages where all their friends, are not doing quite as well.
Yep. And the affiliate as the center, truly the center of healthcare in the community. I got to tell you, so the affiliates are the lifeblood of CrossFit, and the coaches who are on the front lines, spreading the message, doing the work with the athletes, with the clients, are the true heroes in CrossFit. And in this discussion I've had with you today, and I didn't know you before today, I just poked around on your Instagram, watched some podcasts with you. You truly epitomize what CrossFit envisions as the tip of the spear in coaching. I mean, the way you talk about CrossFit, the way you think about it, the way you think about your client's experience, nutrition, all this stuff, dude, awesome.
Thank you.
This was awesome. Thank you so much for coming out here, and man, I'm fired up. I got nothing else to say, but you fired me up today, man. Really cool. Thank you so much, man.
I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, no, this was great. We got more to talk about, and we'll do that at some time. But yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch, and hopefully see you out here some more. But really great. Thank you so much. Awesome.